In Part 8 on our series on psychological gesture, we talk about how to use a compositional gesture right after this. Hi, the Inspired Actor here. If you're new to this channel, we are dedicated to helping actors become better artists by offering these quick, roughly 10-minute acting classes. We also have playlists about acting in general called Actors Take 5, and lots of other stuff, so don't forget to go to my channel page for all my videos. Now let's begin. Those who create theater must take responsibility for the impact their productions have upon their audience. They must be willing to ask if what is being presented to the spectators has any value for them as human beings. MichaelChekhov. So, now that we are at the end of our exploration of psychological gesture for now, we can explore one more way PG can be used to further our aims as artists, performers, and especially directors. To begin with, I want to talk a little bit about Chekhov's ideas about what he called a theater of the future. It's important to remember that Chekhov, who died in 1955, felt very passionately that theater, and particularly actors, had a special place in the future of the world as a whole, and it was up to the actor to save the soul of the theater, and with it the future of our profession. Rather than being slaves to the next gig or the next paycheck, Chekhov felt that actors should ask themselves what value the work they are doing has for their audience. He asked actors to develop a certain moral imagination that can lead the world into a more positive future. In other words, the actor-artist should actively endeavor to make the world a better place through their craft. Speaking for myself, I agree with Chekhov that theater, film, and the stories we tell and portray have a certain undeniable power and importance to the world at large. I hear far too many of my peers put down our profession with phrases like, "It's not brain surgery," or "It's just a show," or something like that. But if COVID taught us anything, it taught us the importance of stories in our lives and how much we depend on them to get us through very difficult times, both personally and as a people. What we do is important. It has meaning for people and serves a valuable purpose in our society. In his teaching, Chekhov would commonly use words and phrases such as inspiring, healing, nurturing, strengthening, elevating language to its rightful place as a creative force, penetrating the mysteries of good and evil, showing the nobility of the human being as well as his weaknesses, portraying evil so that it has a positive, transforming effect on the spectator. These weren't simply passionate exaggerations from an eccentric Russian actor. These were dearly held beliefs from a man who experienced war, heartbreak, exile, and a couple of serious nervous breakdowns. Chekhov felt that the great mission of the actor, as well as the director, the playwright, and everyone directly and indirectly involved in telling our stories on stage and on film, was to save the soul of the theater and with it, the future of our profession. He aspired for our craft to open the hearts of our fellow men and thereby create a miracle. I go into all this so that we can begin to ask one of the most important and most ignored questions that a cast of actors must ask in order to reach the lofty goals of the theater of the future. Why are we doing this show? And more importantly, what effect do we hope this show has upon our audience? Now, these questions don't have to have the most profound answers that ever existed. We're not all going to constantly be in shows that call for direct action from our audience. There aren't any shows on Broadway that I know of that have voters' registration sessions after curtain call or have people sign petitions on the way out the door. Sometimes it can be as simple as to lift the audience's spirits, or fill the audience with the spirit of romance. And that's perfectly okay. What's important is that everyone in a particular production be on the same page with what they are hoping to accomplish with their production as a whole, and that the shared mission be a positive one. In other words, the work itself should have a super objective, just like our characters do. And if it has a super objective, then that means it has a gesture, a psychological gesture for the composition, or compositional gesture. If a psychological gesture is a way to access the entire character in condensed form, then the compositional gesture serves the same purpose for the play or movie as a whole. And just as we perform PGs in order to awaken will, desires, and feelings with regards to our characters, we perform CGs to create a unified will, desire, and feeling that we, as an ensemble, wish to awaken within ourselves as performers, as directed toward the spectators of our work. If you are a director, then I have to advise you that this is something different than the normal script analysis work that is done prior to the first rehearsal and is solely under your purview. This is not the same thing as finding the seed of the play or the main themes and ideas that you wish to emphasize in the work. Unless you are doing devised work, hopefully all of that analysis has been done prior to the first day of rehearsal and has been discussed with your designers and production staff well in advance. No, this isn't something that should be decided on by one person, least of all the director. This is something that the whole group can have input in and serves as an ensemble building exercise and a way to strengthen the impact that your show has on its audience. The director's job in building a compositional gesture is as a guide and nothing more. They will set the guidelines by which the gesture is created, and the actors will create it as an ensemble. As we've covered in previous videos, there are three basic approaches to creating a psychological gesture: inspiration, imagination, and intellect. For simplicity's sake, I'll talk about this solely as it relates to theater. Film tends to have a much more nebulous production schedule, and many times a read-through with the entire main cast is not possible. So if you are primarily a film actor or director, feel free to adapt this as you see fit. With the inspirational approach, once the cast has had a read-through of the play and there is a general consensus of the aims, style, and themes of the play, the director can ask the cast to form a circle facing away from each other. Keeping in mind that the focus of the gesture is to the audience, the director can ask the cast to individually create a gesture using their inspiration. If you are unsure about how to do this, I will leave a link to all three videos on creating gestures in the notes. Once each actor has a gesture they are satisfied with, the director then asks the cast to turn around and each takes a turn showing their creation. The cast can ask each other to repeat the gesture, but they shouldn't really have too much discussion here. Think of this as a non-verbal, physical conversation about the play. I'm wary of letting actors talk too much during this exercise because it inevitably leads to questions of why. Why did you choose this or that? And I don't think those questions are very productive in theater generally, and especially in the act of creating a gesture. So, once everyone has seen each other's gesture, the director can ask his actors to turn their backs on everyone again. But this time, instead of doing their own gesture, they have to do one of the gestures they just saw. After they've all chosen and executed a gesture, ask them to turn around and all do their gesture simultaneously. What tends to happen is that everyone gravitates to the same 2 or 3 gestures. If this happens, great. If it doesn't, don't sweat it. Just have them repeat, turning around and executing a gesture. But maybe this time they can only choose the 3 most popular gestures. Once they've narrowed it down some more, then have them repeat the gesture as a group and ask them to incorporate elements of each one. Eventually, the cast will all come up with a gesture for the play that they all agree with. With the imagination approach, the director can offer a little more guidance. Perhaps they have come up with a few phrases or words that touch on the theme of the play. For A Midsummer Night's Dream, for example, the director might give the phrase, "Love is madness," or "the danger of magic," or "the fog of love," something like that. Then ask the actors to use that phrase to begin to create a gesture. You can do the same thing we did before, or you can have them form a circle and pass a gesture to each other. Once it has gone around once, then have them adjust the gesture gradually until a consensus is reached. This usually works fine and only takes anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. Again, the less you allow your cast to talk about the gesture, the faster everyone tends to agree on it. So please keep that in mind. Finally, there is the intellectual approach to creating a compositional gesture. This might take an entire rehearsal to do, but in my opinion, it's worth it and is infinitely more valuable than the same amount of time being spent on table talk. So here's how to do it. First, get the cast on their feet and form a circle. Ask the cast to envision how they would like the audience to feel when the show is over. For example, do they want them to feel enlightened, excited, filled with a feeling of loss, or empowered to make a change in the world. Really try to picture their faces using as much specific imaginative detail as possible. Now ask your cast to collaborate on a gesture that embodies that feeling. This can be done by using the methods I described before or not, but please keep it active. Then ask the cast how they think the show accomplishes that goal. Does it push them to action? Pull them into the world of the play? Does it rip their guts out, encourage a group feeling of togetherness, lift their spirits, or weigh them down with sorrow? Again, some level of discussion can be had, but try to make it as active and on its feet as possible. It's important that the decision be unanimous. Do not leave anyone out or dismiss anyone's ideas. If half the cast says the play pushes the audience to action, and the other half says it lifts their spirit, then invite the actors to combine the gestures by either doing them simultaneously or in sequence. Once your group has chosen their gesture, then the final step is in finding the shadow or problem gesture. This is a gesture for the problem that the play is trying to solve. In A Midsummer Night's Dream, the problem might be unrequited love, or male oppression, or love is out of balance. Many times there are multiple problems that a director has found prior to rehearsal. A director can list off these problems and have the cast, who are again facing away from each other, choose one or two of these to create a gesture for. Just like before, have them come to a consensus on one gesture for the problem, and then have the cast combine everything into one complete gesture that begins with the shadow, then moves into the primary gesture of action, and then into the vision for the audience. Once a gesture has been chosen using any of the three methods above, then have the actors repeat the gesture until they know it by heart and can do it in unison. Have them do it before every rehearsal and performance. Remember, repetition is the growing power, and by constant repetition, the cast will have a unified vision for their performance as a whole. One final note. Like any gesture, the most effective use the actor's full body, maximum psychological and physical effort, can be repeated many times, ends in polar opposition to where it began, and contains the artistic frame. Ideally, it should also be done on one complete breath, but if you are using the intellectual approach, then 3 complete breaths might be better. If you have ever done this or end up trying to use this with your cast, then please let me know how it worked for you in the comments. Hope this inspired you. Thanks to everyone who has subscribed to my channel. Over 1,200 actors and performers just like you have subscribed in order to become better artists on stage and in film. If you haven't subscribed already, I invite you to hit the button. And don't forget to ring the bell if you want to be notified as soon as our next video comes out. I now have a Patreon page, so if you'd like to support my videos and help me make more, please consider joining. Click on the right for my latest video, and on the left if you want to watch all my videos on psychological gesture from the beginning. And if you'd like to know more about me or are interested in private coaching or classes, please visit MichaelChekhov.com. See you later, colleagues.